Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Naim bin Rahizan, and inshallah today I'll be sharing about the effect of freeze drying and oven drying of the Durian seeds affinity towards water. Okay, together with me in this group project, Dr. Siti Badia binti Omar and Dr. Latifah Karim. We are from Faculty of Science and Technology, University of Science Islam, Malaysia. Okay, this is the slide for this study. Okay, the introduction part. The Durian seed is emerging as potential source of hydrocolloid that can be utilized into the food industry instead of being discarded as food waste. Hydrocolloid's affinity towards water is important in utilizing a hydrocolloid. Food preservation has enabled global trade and become even more important in enhancing food security, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Hence, it has become more important to find a good drying treatment to retain durian seed's shelf life without jeopardizing its affinity towards water. The objective of this study is to investigate how oven drying and freeze drying affect durian seed flowers characteristics such as water holding capacity, oil holding capacity, water solubility, and thermal behavior. This is the methodology briefly. We start with extraction and drying process, followed by water and oil holding capacity determination, water solubility determination, thermal behavior analysis, and lastly, scanning electron microscope. Okay, this is the image of the right durian seed flower obtained from oven drying and freeze drying. Okay, freeze-dried durian seed flour has higher water and oil holding capacity compared to water and oil holding capacity of oven-dried durian seed flour. The data differs from another study, which found that freeze-dried durian seed gum has lower water holding capacity than oven-dried durian seed gum, but higher oil holding capacity. This is due to different extraction method and different experimental condition of carbohydrate study. Previous researchers found that freeze-dried orange peels, mango peels, and prickly pear peels have better water holding capacity. It is said that water and oil holding capacity is affected by change in microstructure of food product after drying process because thermal damage and contact hours during drying process. Freeze-dried food products have small and uniform pores, making water and oil absorption occur easily compared to oven-dried and hot air-dried product, which have less uniform and bigger pores. Hence, water and oil holding capacity of freeze-dried durian seed flour are much better than oven-dried durian seed flour. Okay. Freeze-dried durian seed flour has higher solubility than oven-dried durian seed flour. Study carried out by Garcia showed that freeze-dried mango peels and freeze-dried prickly pear peels have better solubility compared to their hot air-dried counterparts. He suggested that freeze-dried durian seed flour has the potential to be upcycled as a food-grade hydrocolloid. The best performance and functional properties of food-grade hydrocolloids like xanthan, carrageenan, and Arabic gum, for example, can sometimes be seen when they have completely dissolved in water. Hydrocolloid may not be dissolved in a perfect manner due to availability of insoluble particles and impurities, as water solubility of hydrocolloid like durian seed relies on hydroxyl group's presence, behavior of monosaccharide intersugar linkages, and the capacity to react through intermolecular interactions. Durian seed has as much as 40.8% from total amount of monosaccharide, which makes its affinity for water quite high. Solubility is part of the physicochemical properties of a hydrocolloid, which can be affected by the molecular structure of hydrocolloid itself. High solubility of freeze-dried durian seed flour occurs because of abundance of hydrophilic parts and soluble materials together with its low cross-linking. Freeze-dried durian seed flour receives less intense heat, so its solubility is higher than oven-dried durian seed flour. The drying process may cause changes in molecular structure of the dried durian seed flour. Freeze-drying process is also said to produce food product with better rehydration capability, which make freeze-dried food product interacts well with water. In addition to study conducted by round 3 showed that as temperature of drying process increase, the degree of solubility of food decrease. The low solubility of oven-dried durian seed flour is caused by exposure to heat as high as 105 degrees Celsius. during oven drying process, which resulted into protein denaturation. High drying temperature can cause protein to denature, which ends up lowering the water solubility of dried food product. This is the TGA result of oven and freeze-dried durian sweet flour. According to Tan, the initial decomposition stage of durian shell sample is caused by moisture loss, followed by decomposition of cellulose and hemicellulose, and finally lignin. Other researchers found that degradation of hemicellulose occur below 350 degrees Celsius, while cellulose between 250 to 500 degrees Celsius and lignin above 400 degrees Celsius. In this study, we can see thermal degradation of oven and freeze-dried durian seed show different rate of degradation, which can be divided into three. The first one is 0 to 100, followed by 100 to 300, and finally 300 to 700 degrees Celsius. Sample weight loss as heating is carried out by oven-dried durian seed flour is lower than freeze-dried durian seed flour. Crystallinity of oven-dried durian seed flour is higher than freeze-dried durian seed flour. Oven-dried durian seed flour has shorter transition phase than freeze-dried durian seed flour. Transition phase for both samples takes around 100 and 300 degrees Celsius. Okay, this is the graph again, just in case. Okay. Oven-dried durian seed flour receive higher heat treatment during drying process compared to freeze-dried durian seed flour. Lots of moisture, heat-sensitive and volatile content in oven-dried durian seed flour are already lost during drying, whereas freeze-dried durian seed flour still has abundant amount of moisture, heat-sensitive materials, and volatile content prior to heating process for thermogravimetric analysis. Hence, oven-dried durian seed flour loses less weight percentage than freeze-dried durian seed flour. Moreover, high temperature of oven drying also affected oven-dried durian seed flour's ability to crystallize. Freeze-dried durian seed flour has better ability to crystallize than oven-dried durian seed flour, since freeze-drying use lower heat treatment than oven drying. Okay, this is the scanning electron microscopic images for both dried durian seed flour. Some images suggest that oven-dried durian seed flour's particles are less uniform, while freeze-dried durian seed flour's particles are more uniform. High heat treatment during oven drying causes oven-dried durian seed flour to suffer more thermal damage than freeze-dried durian seed flour. Hence, its particles look less uniform. Low heat treatment during freeze drying causes freeze-dried durian seed flour to suffer less thermal damage than oven-dried durian seed flour. Hence, its particles look more uniform in terms of size and shape. During freeze drying, food samples were frozen quickly and water content in the food turned into gaseous state by passing the liquid. The freezing process prior to freeze drying helped immobilizing the tissue structure of food sample, which assists in maintaining original trait as much as possible. The findings obtained after oven-dried and freeze-dried durian seed flour were observed using SAM align with findings from other studies. Freeze-dried saffron retains its cellular structures and pollen grains better than its oven-dried counterpart, and the structure is a bit loose compared to that of oven-dried saffron. And then freeze-dried chia mucilage powder is smaller, more uniform, and has finer fibrous structure than oven-dried one. And researchers discovered that high heat treatment produce starch granules that are bigger in size and agglomerated upon performing oven drying and freeze drying on potato flour. For the conclusion, freeze-dried durian seed flour display higher water solubility, water holding capacity, and oil holding capacity than oven-dried durian seed flour. Freeze-dried durian seed flour lost higher weight percentage compared to oven-dried durian seed flour during thermogravimetric analysis. Freeze-dried durian seed flour shows a much more uniform particle size and shape compared to oven-dried during scanning electron microscopy. Hence, from this study, it can be said that freeze-dried durian seed flour gives better outcome than oven-dried durian seed flour. However, more studies on more parameters, aspects, and properties of both oven-dried and freeze-dried durian seed flour are needed. The temperature and contact hours toward heat used for oven drying process can be varied for future studies. To explore the possibility of producing oven-dried durian seed flour with desired properties without jeopardizing any physicochemical properties of oven-dried and oven-dried durian seed flour through excessively High temperature or unfair amount of contact hours for urban drying. High solubility, water, and oil holding capacity of durian seed may suggest potential for durian seed flour to be used as a new source of food hydrocolloid. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Wallahu a'lam bishawab. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Again, thank you very much.